but he keeps threatening that they can sell it, and then he's rent something while they do it. We don't want to move far away from us. We're the best neighbors ever.
That's what he says. That's what he said. But he's a mess.
He is a mess. He's a good egg.
Good to see you. How are you doing? Good. Please.
Feel like I was 6'4" and I was in
The camera's looking right at me.
It should be biased. It should be biased. Just all right again.
I just had to walk downstairs. I was trying to make everything work. Can you? No, there's not. Jason. Nice to meet you. See, I'm an alumni. I got my bachelor's. I know, right? That's what I was thinking.
I'm not feeling that because that's what he said.
Too late.
Good try. So you try to be positive.
You got to believe that's how I'm keeping everyone. I joined the school. I graduated in 2015. So it's one of those things where I had to do the job bill and I was working full time for the Park Service and went back to school full time. Knocked it out in 3 years, knocked it out. And it was good. Now I'm over here for but I could have never applied for that job. So I finished it. So that was great. Exactly. Well, it's here. It just felt good. You know, it's like, I'm home, I live here, I'm working here.
Touch your nose, touch your ear. I really seriously was meeting with some people one time, and I just got out of the classroom and after 35 years, and I was thinking, how do I get these people's attention? And I started doing that. There were two mad groups, so they were at each other's throat. That's, what is it, Jekyll and Hyde? And I thought, but anyway, they started laughing so hard, they thought, gosh, what are we elected? So, anyway, welcome today. We want to go over some Triumph View money we're going to get, and we want to involve our community. This is the first of many meetings we want to have, so we get your ideas. So we'll be asking for ideas a little bit later on. But to start with, let's just go around the room, and we'll start with Bonnie. Tell us who you are, and if you're retired, or if you're representing the hospital, or because I'm looking around the room, and you are our stakeholders. I see you at so many. Bill Fletcher and I are trying to see who can be at the most meetings. So, Bonnie, could you start?
Yes, I am Bonnie McQuiston. I'm representing the Walton County Small Business Association.
Celeste?
Yeah, I'm Celeste Cavina, and I'm the SOSA.
Hi, I'm Paul Manners. I'm the CEO of a branding firm here based in Cincinnati, but here now full-time since March of 2016. My role here is to learn more about what the transplant is and potential cases.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Oops, I'm sorry.
I'm Lee Moore. I'm Director of Community Affairs and Power Group and representing a few nonprofits and Global Foundation, South Walton Community Council.
I'm Bill Fletcher, and I follow Cecilia around. Now, I serve on the board of the Animal Food Children's Advocacy Center and the Chamber and the Kiwanis Club.
I'm Lauren Hood. I'm the founder of Aliquot Animal Refuge, and I also sit on the board of the E.O. Wilson Invited Food Center.
Bob Russell, Walton County Interested Citizen. Charlie Morris, Director of Emerald Coast Technical College in Funiac, and also Walton County School District Representative.
Dennis Sherwood, Dean of Career and Technical Education, Northwest Florida State College.
Roger Hall, President Sacred Heart Hospital in Coast. President Sacred Heart Hospital in Dalton.
Good to see you, Roger.
Good to see you.
Hello everybody, I'm Michael Casey. I'm the grant director, the new one at the Northwest Florida State College. We can move that time.
I'm Megan Harrison. I'm the president and CEO of the Walton Area Chamber of Commerce, in addition to several other community organizations.
My name is Bruce Naylor. I'm the owner-broker of Naylor Realty in Defuniak Springs, and I'm also a board member of the new Main Street program in Defuniak. So, any place I need to talk. Thank you.
I'm Sarah Commander. I'm one of your county commissioners for Walton County, and I also represent the business organization in Phoenix.
I'm Ted Lattinghouse from Triangle Chevrolet Buick, and I'm also a member of the Walton Area Chamber Board.
I'm Michelle Johnson. I work for Trust Park Bank. I'm also involved with Matrix Community Outreach Center in the United Way.
And we have a young, maybe future elected official back there. What's her name, Taylor?
That's Emma Lattinghouse, my daughter.
Great. Well, just listen, and you might be here where I'm sitting one day. I want to.
Thanks, Jason.
Okay, there.
I'm Jason Kutcher. I'm the Director of Administration here at the TDC.
I'm Lisa Foster. I'm the executive assistant here at the TDC.
And I want to introduce Sarah again. Sarah, without the commissioners working together and our municipalities too, we couldn't accomplish what we're fixing to accomplish in this county. And Sarah, I just want Sarah just to briefly tell you a little bit about the broadband. She's been ahead of the game. She serves on our consortium, and then she also has been on the broadband search, and we've come a long way, a lot farther than we possibly could without her leadership. So she could just share a little bit, and then
You're very sweet. Yes, one of my roles, and that's where I will be next week, is representing Walton County on the state consortium board. For those of you who don't know, the consortium is made up of 23 counties and that were affected by the oil spill. We go all the way from Pensacola all the way down to Monroe County to Key West. We are in charge of the pot 3 money, and all these pots. So we are in charge of the pot 3 money and how it is directed and used. And it's my privilege to represent Walton County and stick up for us. Billy knows I'm sometimes the only one holding the lantern, but I'm holding it. I'm too old to intimidate, but that is. But yeah, one of the things that I have cared a lot about since I've been in office is broadband. Without broadband, we can never attract the businesses we need to this county. And it's wonderful that, to have all that we're doing now, but if we don't have the money to help put in the infrastructure for broadband, people, I've been told more than once that the car plant that came through Alabama a number of years ago, they didn't ask about water. They didn't ask about sewer. They didn't ask about roads. They asked if you had internet access. That was the one question they asked. If it hadn't been available, they would have gone somewhere else. So Walton County is kind of on the cusp. We are fortunate. Back in 2015, the board elected to enter into an agreement with a company called Southern Light, and we had run over 100 miles of fiber throughout the county. And how we were able to do this, and I'm surprised that people would ask me how we accomplished this. I mean, it's so simple. The school board, the county commission, the sheriff's department, we all got together and said, we need this, how do we do it? And we worked together, the clerk's office, we worked together to accomplish it. Apparently in other states and counties, they don't cooperate as well, which is surprising to me because we all work for the public. But anyway, we, about that time, E-rate dollars, which is some of the money the school board gets, was directed by the federal government to use E-rate dollars to put in lines to all the school facilities. So we just it was just a golden opportunity. We hooked on to that, and we got $25 million worth of fiber in the ground for $1.5 million. We spent $1.5 million of your tax dollars, and we got it done. It's run through every sheriff's department, it's run through every school board, it's run every county facility. Where else? Along the corridors, I mean, that goes up Rock Hill, for example, to Mr. Chapman's office. So we were able to accomplish that big task by joining with the school board. Because they had to do it. They were under the mandate from the federal government. And the federal government gave them money, so it's like, yeah, we don't mind spending your money. And right now, we have done that, and that's been accomplished. Our next big goal is to get people in rural areas connected to internet. There are even people here in South Walton that want to do business down here from their home, but they cannot for lack of proper internet. A lady came before us recently, just tell me, I'll tell you too much time, that they had just moved here and lived in the north part of the county. They were promised internet service, but what they were told is they had to be on the same line with 10 or 15 other people. So they couldn't, she and her husband both operate from home, they couldn't do it. Their kids who were, I mean, I've met the kids, they're brilliant. They couldn't get online to do their schoolwork. So these people are thinking of leaving Walton County. I mean, here are two, remarkable people. They don't have to leave Walton County unless we can get them access. So that's what the board is working on now. We're trying to nudge some of the private, we've done the legwork, we've done the main trunk work. The heavy work and also the money, Walton County is taken care of. So that's our next step, is to encourage these people, hey, come on, run the line to her house. Because, it's like that movie was, build it and they'll come. Well, if you run it to her house, she may be out, but then all of a sudden there are going to be houses that are going to build along that line so that they can get internet access. And it's paramount. You don't think about how important it is, but in these days, you need it for school, we need it for economic development, healthcare. Roger could speak to this. Is now some of these people that live way up in the country, they don't need to go to the doctor every time they have a sniffle. If they can get online and call the doctor's office and have a face-to-face, and it can save them a trip to the hospital and save them time. So again, that's one of the things that we're looking at. And the last point I'll make is that we brought it before the board, I think it was two board meetings ago, to have a program called Dig Once. And as new developments are coming in, especially down here, we want them to, as they lay the fiber for the telephone and, put in a conduit. So future, that will be there to run, and that way you don't have to dig up the highway again, or you don't have to dig up the right of way. So that's some of the things that we as a commission are working on, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished. And a little more money, we do more.
Does that mean that I can watch a movie from my house and it won't go off?
That's what we're looking at.
But that, you have to relate to it, and I can relate to that. I was talking to Taylor about that yesterday, about, that other than water and sewer, it's kind of our number one priority.
It's difficult right now to push along 331 water and sewer paramount, but, it's critical. Our future is going to be determined by broadband.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thanks for that. I want to thank all of you for your service to the community. We just have different aspects. As you introduced yourself, I was thinking how we all complement each other and how we're so fine-tuned and we work together. And that's the neat thing about being in Walton County, is that our people are so special. Just to give you a little bit of history, if you remember when we had a recession and we were coming out of the recession and we were ready to move and groove and go again. And then the BP oil spill hit. And our beaches weren't damaged as much as I thought they would be, but if you read the newspaper, it was like, don't come to the Panhandle, don't come to Florida. So that was our biggest negative impact. So we got through that. I remember hiring another person from my office to field phone calls, because we get calls like, we've been through hurricanes, but we don't know what the beach is going to look like all black. People just did not know what to expect. So we came out of that, we went to Washington and we lobbied, and I'll never forget that little lobbyist telling me, honey, you might as well just go home, you're not going to get this money. And I remember looking at him and I said, sir, I don't waste my time. I came up here to get restore money and we're going to take it home with us. Well, I was just filling him full, because I did believe it, so we did. I think that's where I met you one, and you gave me a tour of Washington, and I thought, oh my God. Yeah, so we came back home with the money, and we've been waiting, and the governor just signed the bill, 2 weeks ago? So, yes. But you know, Walton County is beautiful. We have the beaches on the south end, we have the farmland in the north end. There's probably, I don't know, another place that you can drive in an hour and see, you know, the different walks of life. And what makes us, again, so special is our people. I have all these notes here. I'm trying not to use them. You know, but we rebounded. We rebounded from the BP oil spill. We are resilient. There you go. Yeah. We're resilient. We come back. We work hard to overcome. We've done all those things, and now we're at the golden moment of being able to spend some of this money. And so that's what we ask you here for today. We don't want to just be one track. You know, my biggest complaint, or I have a lot of complaints with government in Tallahassee and Washington, but they kind of want to tell us what to do from over there, and they don't ask us enough, do they, Celeste, about what our projects need to look like. They just kind of want to rule and regulate from Tallahassee. Well, we don't want to do that. We want input from you today. So what we're going to do is I'm going to let Bill confuse you totally with all these pots, tell us what we're looking at, how much money we're actually looking at, and then we want to have a roundtable discussion of what kind of projects you would like to see. So with that,
Bill, is that a paper copy of?
It is. I ran off 20 copies. I didn't know how many folks were going to show, but y'all can pass these around and we can get some more.
Billy doesn't need notes like I do.
And we'll warn you now, he's the former county commissioner in Gulf County, and he does love to talk.
I found a microphone. My wife teases me about it. I don't know if y'all remember when I was a kid, they had Mr. Microphone for kids. You could walk around with it. You're going to get you one for Christmas. So you can walk around the neighborhood. That could ease well for that. But the board's very indulgent with it.
Thank you.
As she mentioned, my name is Bill Williams. I've been the restore coordinator for Walton County for probably, I guess, over 3 years now. This has been a very long process. She's correct. When we first met, I also served as the president of the Florida Association of Counties. But during that time, all of the 8 counties learned something about collaborating and working together and coming up with funding formulas. So part of what I'm going to tell you is a story to tell you where we got here, but she hit it to me right on the head. It's literally showtime with these dollars in different pots. So you have to indulge me a little bit. This is a real informal meeting. You can stop me at any point, ask questions. That's what it's about. We'll try to be as expedient. But I'm going to sound like, with all due respect to my triangle man over here. He's giving a door prize with a new car, is one you believe.
I'm driving it, actually. It's a red, what kind of car is that? Red Melvin. It really drives good.
But by the time I finish, I think he'd give me a job as a salesman, because I'm going to tell you about a whole bunch of packages that you can buy. Basically, if you think about the Restore Act, and when I'm going to talk 2 things today, both federal law and state law. The first thing I'm going to start out with is federal law. So if you hear anywhere in the paper, you hear politicians talking, you hear the county talking or me talking, if you hear anything, so I'm trying to simplify this, but give you some cliff notes. If you hear me say pot 1, pot 2, you hear restore, all that's federal, so you have to think. So like again, pot 1, pot 2, and there's different determinants, but that fell under federal law. If you hear me talk about Triumph, the Gulf Coast Corridor Act, any of that's state law, okay? And they're all entwined, but they're separate, obviously, not only just because of, but who's in charge of these pots. The most important thing we want to try to do today is, number one, as the commissioner said, get your involved, get your ideas. This wasn't like a typical committee. We didn't go to the county and say, can you appoint an advisory board, or can we appoint these 5 people? This is such a large interactive element. We need pieces from all over the place. And we're not trying to avoid anything. We're not trying to avoid sunshine, etc. But I want you to be able to pick up the phone and talk to him and talk to him. And we don't want to put people in a situation where they can't discuss the future of Walton County. So it's not about us. It's about y'all being able to talk and communicate, and also have this free flow of information versus a very structured board, chairman, that type thing. We think the more interactive, yes ma'am?
You make a note that this meeting was advertised because we have two commissioners.
Yeah, that's correct. Now, that part we did do to kick it off, and you'll see that we'll advertise this because we do want the public here. And other commissioners may come. This is going to take us, as the commissioner said, chairman said, this is going to take everybody's hands on the steering wheel. But the most important thing I want to impress upon you is that we want your ideas. We want to take those ideas, we'll put them in the right buckets, we'll match things up as we go along. So I'm going to cliff note a lot of this stuff. It's real thick. But under the Clean Water Act and where we were originally, when the oil spill happened on April 20th, 2010, that was a bad day. But the scenario is that traditionally all of those penalties of what would happen to a person or a corporation in that would go to the general trust fund with Treasury. The Restore Act, and we're still the only place where this is in effect. We said, look, we were the ones impacted. We don't want that money going. And again, this is a coalition of boodles of commissioners, parish people. I mean, when the commissioners were talking about we were up there, we were there in droves. We wanted the money coming back to the affected areas, and that meant from Texas to Florida. We wanted to make sure those monies came back to the affected areas. We didn't know what we were doing because nobody had ever seen anything like this, but we knew at the end of the day we wanted those dollars to come back. In Florida, we took it a step further. We had seen stimulus. I'll never forget when they told me, we got $75,000 in Gulf County for professional striping. There's still no professional stripers employed in Gulf County, so stimulus didn't really hit us that well. We wanted to take it a lower level and say we want it back to the affected local governments, in the process. So with Steve Sutherland, and again, no matter what your politics are, this was a true, effort. Senator Nelson did phenomenal. He was the conferee on the Senate side. Steve Sutherland was the conferee on the House side. They worked together. Mary Landrew from Louisiana was incredible. But we got it passed. She's exactly right. No one believed this bill would get passed. So what the main thing to impress upon you is that 80% of these penalties would come back to the 5 areas. And that's important because most of you have seen either news releases or paper where it was $18.9 billion settled in Judge Barbary's federal court in Louisiana. We knew what the funding formula was like for the educators. It was like a bad algebra, equation. We saw X, we know what we got over here. Once we knew what that dollar amount was, we knew what was going to be coming back through these pots. So I'm going to go real quickly through those pots. That's the 80%. The feds did keep 20%. It would still go into that general trust fund, okay? This is how they set it up into, when I say pots, everybody's talking about medical marijuana. We've been dealing with pot for 3 years. But pot 1, if you can remember, if you hear me talk about or we go through, pot 1 is local. Okay, that's when I said when it came back down to the local counties, that's what happened, which is kind of cool. These commissioners, myself at the time, we literally came up with a funding formula with the congressman, with the senator, that they actually codified into federal law. The 15 counties below us, so you're going to hear me talk about disproportion or affected counties. So if you think about the Panhandle, there are 8 counties that were technically called affected or disproportionate counties and non-disproportionate counties. So the other 15, all the way down to Monroe, actually had a funding formula too, but the feds set that. So that's pot 1. If you hear me talk about pot 2, and that is in their hands, the Board of County Commissioners. Now, for all the folks that say, well, what's local government going to do with it? We got 9,000 layers of bureaucracy, oversight. They even put Treasury as the end stick to get the grant approval. So there's all kind of things we have to go through. It's not just the board picks it. So far in pot 1, the board has committed about $5.7 million on 17 different projects. That was submitted to the feds. And we're waiting for Treasury to approve that, then we can start drawing down on that. And I'm going to go through this more specifically with the funding formulas, but we're very close to seeing actual dollars open up there. Pot 2, particularly if the environmental focus is again, that's why we want the community, because we're all about economics and the environment. There is $1.6 billion in pot 2. That is controlled by an 11-person board, both federal and state. So the president will appoint 6, and this board exists. So there are 6 presidential appointees, and there are 5 gubernatorial appointees on that board. For example, when you talk about the environment, everybody, let's say Choctawhatchee Bay, this is where the environmental community has to work with us, because it's not about Choctawhatchee Bay. That has to be of regional or statewide impact to go after that $1.6 billion. The governor has appointed former Secretary Herschel Vineyard over DEP to be our trustee, so he's one of the voting 11 members. And I'll come back to that pot in a minute, but we're working on that. I'm going to tell you what Walton County's doing with it when we come back to it. Pot 3 is the consortium of the 23 counties that Commissioner Commander referenced. She's our representative on that board. There are county commissioners from the 23 counties. There's $290 million in that pot. Pot's 4, and there's actually pot 5, and I'm glad to have our college folks here. One of the things that I so distinctly remember when I was a commissioner, I contacted FSU, and one of the professors I was talking to, he said respectfully, but he said, I'm a professor, I'm not accustomed to talking to a commissioner. I said, well, conversely, I'm a commissioner, I'm not very good at talking to a professor. But if we don't figure out, because everything is about best science and best practices and this and that. Well, if you say that to these now commissioners, me historically, what exactly are you talking about? So we had to work with the academic community to bring this to fruition. And the reason I outline these, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, all of these pots can be leveraged against each other. Normally, when you go after a grant, and a lot of you have done it in schools and everything else, they say it's a 50% match or 75% match. We can take this dollars and leverage it against this and up against this. This is like if you're old enough to remember Battleship, it's kind of like this, like E5. Did I hit anything? I mean, we are trying to connect dots to put this total together. So when I say we need academia, we need our business community, we need our environmentalists, that's a true story, because you cannot do this alone in the process. So any questions before I go on there? And I'm trying to go fast, but slow me down. Yes, sir.
Pot 1, what was the size of Pot 1?
Pot 1 has $39 million that Walton County has. And again, you have to remember, one of the things that Judge Marbury and VP of the Justice Department agreed to was a 15-year spread on these dollars. So it's not like $39 million sitting there available today. It's over a 15-year period, and we're working with lending institutions. I talked to Michelle about ideas about bonding and different things that we have to do. So there's some creative financing we have to do too. Because like, we'll talk about 331 in a minute, but if we only get $2 million a year for the next 15 years, we'll never see sewer up 331. I mean, so there's some strategy to that as well. Yes, sir.
What is our outreach in terms of trying to educate folks that there is a problem on the table and how to get their feedback? Like this meeting specifically, I mean, how are we trying to entice folks to participate?
Well, part of it is just a feeding frenzy. Poor Bob called me earlier talking about, I have been called, I feel like everybody's found out where the pinata is. They're all swinging. Can they build me a barn? Can they build, I mean, it's incredible. So part of it will just be emotional, but to do it strategically, it starts with the governmental entities, the counties, the cities, the school boards. We've met with all the school boards, we've met with the colleges, we've met with UWF, we've met with Florida State, we're meeting with all those entities. This is the first step that the commissioner and the chairman wanted us to move more focused with our business community and all of our different stakeholders with this level. But we've been at it a long time, and now we're trying to move into not just public hearings and public sector. They really want your information. You know, I talked to you the other day. If you take Alqua, for example, and what they're doing, well, how does that link to Pot 2, or how does that link to Pot 1? So part of what I'm going to do under their direction, and I'm not saying this, I work for them, they're very open to this. They want me to talk to all of these businesses, and I may say, I don't see it, and how it connects, or I may say, like I did you. I mean, you do just about figured everything else, like, is there anything you don't do? But how do I get by affiliate plan, her center, and how do I tie it to the college, and then how do I tie it to the K-20? Because when I get to the state law in a minute, you're going to see different uses of this money and what you can do on it. So to answer your question long and short, we're starting with government, all the different players and what the money can be spent on. Then we're going to the business people. Then we're going to the average Joe out there. And I said,
So is there a repository where all this is getting distilled? In a way
Sort
that
of.
you click in and kind of go, oh, that's
No.
that's
The best, and this is for everybody out there, if you look at the Florida Association of Counties website, and I'll give you that link later to tell you where it is, there is a repository of data, but it's overwhelming. I mean, you start reading the Restore Act, you go, what? You know, and you start talking about all these different pots. That's why it's so complex. And then how do you do it? And then how many decision makers? But you ask the right question. It's like any game we've ever played. If you know the rules, you can win. Okay? So what we're trying to do, and what the commissioners have directed me to do, is give you the rules. You know, and then we use whatever your passions are. If it's arts and culture, if it's the environment, if it's whatever, how does it twine? Okay, that into the process.
I think his answer, his question was, how does the public know about this? Well, you remember, we started with Prop 1, and they, so you remember, I mean, everybody was invited to those, everybody was given an opportunity to, you know, so it's, but we can only use what, newspaper, radio, and.
still awareness.
Well, and I think that Paul's question is related to a conversation that he and I have had on multiple levels, and Billy, you and I had it on the One Walton part a little bit in the beginning, but it's, we've got to also either see if there's a way we can partner with someone with a marketing background and experience, where if someone can post a website or.
Oh, 100%.
You know, I think that that's.
Those are the kind of
probably
ideas
where-
that the commissioners need to hear today.
Yeah.
Because what I'm doing is I've gone to them and said, look, I'm a governmental affairs guy. We're going to need grant writers. We're going to need lawyers. We're going to need marketers. We're going to need all these different things. So, and because of budget, I am going to present to them different ideas that we need, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But we need a more defined box, even though it's complex. But that's where we want to go and hear your ideas.
Billy, before you leave the local, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just a question on the allocation of the resources. Cotton One, you said $39 million over 15 years.
Correct.
Is that equally divided over the 15 years?
It's basically, it's about $2 million a year that we'll receive over that 15 years.
$2 million 15 years from now is worth about $1 million. So
That's correct.
baseline. So it's sort of net present value calculations.
We want to take, you, at the end, when I go through this, you'll see where we're talking about taking a little bit of this, leverage it into that, and match it up, so we can make $1 become $5 in the strategies. All right, I'm not going to run.
Hold on.
Yes, sir.
Now, one of the things before we leave with local money, we had projects that we were planning last year where we called and got impact fee quotes. And let's say, for instance, for a hotel, $75,000 for an impact fee in South Walton, the utilities area. All right, we get the project, we got the finance, we got everything, we're ready to go now. We call back and we try to get the letter. We're being quoted $450,000 now because they have new utility projects that they've started. That kills the project.
Are those real numbers?
Those are real numbers. Those are real numbers. Okay, so now we're scrambling, trying to look for additional investors to finance it, and that's just one construction item. You know, and subcontractor pricing and all that. This is real money that needs to be put into infrastructure rather than raising impact fees, taxes, and all this other stuff. Because for impact fees to go from $75,000 on a single project, $1.6 million project, to $450,000 in 1 year is insane. How are we supposed to budget for that?
Yeah, and again, I'm not buying it. I mean, he's trying to hold that to a little bit later. But you're 100% correct. Part of what we're going to talk about is business needs consistency and stability in the linear side. And one of the negatives of this money being spread over 15 years, because we knew the settlements were coming, we had no idea they were going to do it over 15 years. But it's forcing government to think linear and long term and not just, you know, this year, this budget, etc. And if you don't do it right, the chances of ever getting more. So I want to go back to your question when we get through this, but part of the strategy of this is because the money is laid out like that, we have to think long term and be able to give you answers that you can bank on to be able to do it, from fast track permitting, you know, to consistencies in those impact fees. So you bring up a valid point. I just want you to hold it till we get, if you can, just a little bit further. Real quick, these are how the breakdown of these. When you saw the 18.9 million, 35% of it went into the local pots that we talked about, so the parishes and that kind of stuff. And again, Florida is very unique in the fact that it came to local government, If you look at Alabama and Mississippi, they did a little bit in Louisiana, but everything there was controlled by the governors. Okay, so when the feds think local government, they think state. If you looked and saw in the newspaper where Alabama's taking a lot of their money and filling budget holes and Medicaids and different things, we're in a great position because of some state law I'm going to get to in a minute to do some good things with this money. The pots that Sarah and everybody works on, pots 2 and 3, particularly for our college folks, I don't want to lose that because that's huge. And I'll give you a great example there, kind of going to your point, sir. I saw a plan 3 years ago that the Water Management District did that identified, we have 5 watersheds that are within the water management's domain. They did a critical needs assessment of those 5 watersheds, and then they put a critical project list together to address those needs. Budget, scope of work, all those kind of things. That hasn't moved. So if you're looking at the environmental impacts, you have to look at the policy, you have to look at the project and the funding so that we're not just fighting over an issue, we're looking linear as we come in. All right. I'm trying to go fast with all this. This is how the pots are governed. This is important because I want you to know who makes the decisions. Okay? I mentioned to you in pot 1, local government. If you live in Escambia, for example, by the funding formulas that I described earlier, they have $69 million in their Board of County Commissioner control. Our county has 39. Gulf County, where I'm from, has 18. So the Board of County Commissioners, when you hear pot 1, now we set up advisory panels and stakeholder panels, and there's a whole bunch of vetting and things you have to do. But ultimately, with project selection, it falls to the board. When you look at pot 2, as I mentioned earlier, 11 people, 6 federal appointees, 5 gubernatorial appointees. In pot 3, it's the 23 county commissioners. The governor has to sign it. It has to go to the federal council, etc. But if you look at pots 4 and 5, particularly our academic folks, that's who's in charge of those dollars. If you look at the Florida Institute of Oceanography, those folks came with centers of excellence with the colleges, and they kind of did a collage of all of them. And like with what you're looking at with Alaqua and with, I think, Byfield is a sleeping giant. When we tie all those things in, we can go after that money. So again, I'm laying all this out not to confuse you, but to tell you there's a lot of different pots that we need to play with. I'm not going to go through it. I told you pot 1 how it's set up. These are the percentages that you can see with the 8 affected counties. And again, that was based on work with the senators and House members, but that's how Escambia got 69 million and we got 39 million, etc. And this is actually codified into federal law. This tells you over the 8 counties the amount of money that will come into pot 1. So if there's any county there that's of interest to you, but you can see each of the 8 counties and what their DOCCs control. These are the things that under the federal law now, because it's a little different in state law, that you can use these monies for. So when you think about ideas and bubbling up things and what you need to do, this is kind of important, and there's a matrix that we have for you to fill it out. But it was designed to basically, the term resilient was used. They wanted us to look at not only restorations, but becoming resilient and diversified within our economies and our environment. And so they broke these things down on what you could use the money for. I won't spend a lot of time on that, but if you have any questions, it's the same for pot 1, pot 2, pot 3, pot 4 kind of a thing. That's the guiding principle that the council uses that you can use these monies for. Let me back up 1 second. Pot 1, that is really important when you look at some of the things like infrastructure. So it gave us latitude. If 331 sewer was important, or doing something with the environmental components and projects, stormwater, sewers, etc., which we'll talk about, they gave us a lot of latitude to be able to tell our story to go after that funding. Pot 2, as I mentioned, very large from the standpoint of statewide or regional impact. So this takes collaboration with state partners, with regional partners. Walton County cannot do this on their own. Like the Water Management District, great partner. They've been in the bushes for 30 years with no money. They got an opportunity to do things that make a difference. So if we're talking about paving, for example, on the north end of the county, It's not just about 20 voters that live on that road. We're talking about, we can scientifically identify the major sediment and nutrient loaders that are coming into Choctawhatchee Bay. Science can guide their decisions on what we can do. So that's a real important point of, again, how this thing came out. It makes, I've never seen, most of the time folks that really kill each other. They're ready to sit around a table and figure out how to do it, which goes back to the chairman's point. We need each other in this process, because without it, we're going to have 10,000 different people applying for money, and there's no legacy out of this. There's no impact from this. We'll just have scattered projects all over the place. All right, pot 3 we talked about. That is important if you play federal side. When you look at it, these are the current. Now, Trump will change a lot of these, but these are some of the folks that are on that board now. They're basically secretarial level with commerce, etc., that are on that. And then you can see the folks that we have from the different states that have been appointed. And there are websites, I'll give all that to you so you can keep up with the federal side. And this is a pot of money that a lot of people aren't looking at because they don't understand it. And they'll see $300 million and they'll go crazy, but there's $1.6 billion sitting right here.
So to break it down, what are we doing on pot 2 for Walton?
Pot 2 that the commissioner kind of voted on it and also gave direction. They set legislative priority, like when we went to the past session with the legislature, we looked at autonomous vehicles, we talked about innovation centers. We are going after $2 million right now. There's an RFP on the street right now for an estuary program. I know you're familiar with it, but if you look between basically Tampa and Mobile, there is not a national estuary program. And that's been congressionally authorized, but there's a moratorium on those NEPs right now. EPA wanted to have basically an estuary look-alike, you know, so that you could go in, you're not congressionally authorized, but we'll give you $2 million to stand that up. So we've been working with Okaloosa County, us, Holmes, and Washington to form, they just passed this the other day, the commissioners did, to form an estuary program. We're going to apply for that $2 million. We want to build an innovation center where we work with the University of Florida with their best practices and IFAS and all those different components. So that's how we're doing pot 2 at this point. What's missing in Florida is an overall strategy, taking those 5 watersheds. So if you said we're looking at 650 septic tanks, which we are in Walton County, we're not going to get the Fed's attention. But if we say we've got 10,000 septic tanks between Escambia and going through Wakulla County and our springs and everything else, we'll get their attention.
Would adding a multimodal component to our comprehensive plan to manage traffic and parking and alternatives for
absolutely
biking, bikeways, and all that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. One of the things we did, and we got it actually through the session, we had one point, the state gave us $500,000 last year for autonomous vehicles where we started that, the park and ride north and south, moving workers and all that type of stuff. We had 1.9 lined up, we got it approved through the legislature, which was amazing. Governor vetoed. I don't know. But yes, sir, that's the kind of long-term.
The parking study the county's looking at now really should be going after this one.
Absolutely. And remember this is not when, and we'll talk about who's in control of the state money in a second. They don't want us to supplant normal, what you're already taking taxes from folks to deliver. So they don't want us to really supplant these dollars and offset it, but we can save taxpayer money by being creative with our stormwaters, master planning, all the things we're doing to change how we do business. So you're absolutely dead on. All right, I'm not going to go into the pot 2 and 3. I've kind of beat that to death. And I've got copies of this for everybody. We'll put it up on the website so that you can go through it. If you have any other questions, I'll be glad to come back, and I just want to maximize our time.
I was just going to add that in the planning department now, with the matrix, we're working on each element. There's a transportation element. We can make sure that this is.
He brings up a great point when you talk about the comp plan and the LDR. Anybody that's dealt with that as an individual or just trying to get a dock permit or a DRI, if we do things smart over here and try to come up with ideas and we don't have it in our comp plan and our LDR, we're not going to be able to do it even if we got funded. So your point is very valid, that they've got to run parallel courses so that when you hear us talking about amending the comp plan for transportation or multimodal use of this or whatever, and I'll give you a good example of this. How many of you work with DOT in the past, like the regional office, etc.? When you think about all the steps that it goes through, from planning to PD&Es to implementation and all, like that bridge, that took 30 years. That took 30 years. Most people say you did a half-cent sales tax, but it took 30 years to walk through the process. When you look at SIS or strategic intermodal systems and are you on a 5-year work plan and did you go through the TPOs, we were actually, Lee was there yesterday, we talked about jumping projects with DOT. If we go to the state, instead of waiting for funding, if we go to the state and say, hey, we're going to throw in our Pot 1 money, we're going to throw in some Triumph money, we're going to go, and like we can jump things on that 5-year work plan, and that's where we need your help. So if we're talking business people, we're talking about environmental, when we master plan the community, how do we do those things? All right, now I'm going to go into state law. So before I go into that, and I'm going to try to finish up in 15 minutes so we can turn it over to y'all and we can just round table ideas. But anything on the federal act that I've missed or anything that you want to know, it wouldn't, I'm telling you, it really doesn't matter what business you're in. This touches everybody. And I'm so appreciative of TDC hosting us. But if it's voc rehab, if it's the hospital, if it's a nursing home, all of these things touch these different things. So we got to figure out how to bring that whole community model with us and where to do it. Because the average day, and I don't mean this with no disrespect, I've been doing this since day one, and I still wake up and go, now, what are they doing? The scenario is it's so complex, we're going to have to try to put it in, number one, concept to reality, but we're going to have to put it in a way that we can bring our community with us.
Where does this money physically sit, and who will be doling it out over the 15 years?
Everything that I just described is federal. It will sit with U.S. Treasury, and it was it's kind of funny. We were in D.C., and we had actually been audited before they'd give us any money, and I remember telling the Treasury, I get the fact you want to come in and audit us. It's like color crayon, you don't want us to go outside the lines. I said, but you forgot something. They said, what I forget? I said, crayons. I said, we haven't got any money. What are you auditing? Yeah. You know, but Treasury holds it.
And another good thing to point out is that we have worked with this, and Treasury would make rules, and we get ready, and then Treasury, we're going to change those rules. So, I mean, you don't know how much time that we have spent, and they said go down this path, and we were just tricking along, and then they changed their minds, so you need to go this way. Because they have never done this before. Never, ever. So, I mean, they're just making it up as they go along, but unfortunately, we have to follow the rules that they're making up.
That's a great point, because I'll give you an example. 17 different individuals or groups worked through the Pot 1 first phase. I was certainly there. And I'll give you an example of where it's going to catch it. It went through all their recommendations, all their review, it went through advertising, and went to the Board of County Commissioners, they approved it, etc. So 17 projects got approved by the Board of County Commissioners. We sent that in on what's called a multi-year implementation plan. Now Treasury tells us that, yeah, even though those people submitted the ideas, worked the ideas, went through the whole process, we still got to put it out for bid. So when they do approve it, so let's say, just pick one, say the reefs. We're trying to put it in the reefs. Even though they shepherded that project, that individual group, we still got to put it out for RFP. They didn't do it. They're going to get a whipping for it, but they didn't do it. But Treasury said, you have to do it. And I'm thinking, well, isn't that unfair? You've seen all the numbers. You've seen everything that they've submitted, the whole project, et cetera, et cetera. It's the rules. And they'll say, Section CFR 222, and I lose. So that's a good point.
Well, one question. Are there any critical dates coming up with these federal dollars where we have to apply at a certain time period?
Good question. The answer to that is no, because Pot 1 is ours. It's almost like money in the bank. They make you go through the hula hoops to get there, but you're not going to lose it. You're not going to, in other words, that money's not going anywhere. Pot 2 and 3, as you go through, there are dates and things that are going, but we really don't have a lot of influence on it. When I get to Triumph, there are some critical dates.
But just sticking with this real quick, are we like, if we submitted something today, we said, yeah, we want to do this, we want our county needs this, we're gonna apply for this. Are we in the back of 200 applications from other states? I mean, the stuff that's not directly going to us, which is that part one stuff, I mean, is it just so competitive, it's just gonna be a waste of time to really focus on that? Or are we?
No, and again, you got a great question, but the answer to the question is no. We got, like, if you just take pot one, Gulf County's been approved with their multi-year plan. Santa Rosa just got approved with their plan. We think we'll have ours probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But you're really not behind. So what's happened when all this happened, most counties got so focused on pot one, they didn't start looking at pots 2 and 3 and 4 like we have. And we got projects that we submitted to the legislature knowing that they were really going to be triumph projects more than state appropriations projects. But our board said, let's go ahead and see what sticks. Let's see if they'll fund it. So the answer to your question is no. There's no actual critical dates. Now, when I get to triumph, there are some critical dates that I want to go with. Yes, sir.
Does your multi-year implementation plan cover only the 17 projects that have already been proposed and approved?
Correct.
So what plan covers the rest of the 39 million or 36 million, I think is the number you had up on?
That's the board's decision, but I would think probably within the next 30 to 60 days, you'll see us open up. It's not really a funding cycle, but the next $31 million. The reason we started with the 5.7, you remember there were multiple litigants that were involved, and that was all the money that was available at that particular time. The settlement had not come in with BP. When BP settled, then we had the additional dollars. But I would say, and that's their call, but I would say probably in the next 30 to 60 days, we'll open up the $31 million that's available where people can go back to the process.
So you're looking at excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can alter the multi-year plan. I mean, the one down, it's not in tablet. We can alter it as we go along.
It sounds like you're thinking of it in 2 phases. The one that you've already done that had the 17 projects in it was about $5.some million. And then the remaining amount is going to be a phase 2.
Yes.
But that's going to be spread over 15 years. Right?
All of it's spread over 15 years.
Well, I mean, phase 1 now you've.
But his new project would be in this next group.
There's only going to be 2 they were talking.
Yeah, but Sarah's right. We can amend it at any time. So I don't want to tell you there's a phase 1, phase 2, but like the 5.7 that's obligated, that's sitting there ready for us to draw down. Once we're approved by Treasury and we go out for bid and whoever gets awarded, we start drawing down those money.
That's done.
Well, we're waiting for them to approve.
Until you get the money, but I mean, it's getting approved, but it's been approved at the county level. It's just a Treasury for final.
And we're not tied to the same process we used last time. We were actually going to brainstorm and see if we want to do a different process, if we want economic development to have more influence as opposed to the consortium, the panel. What do we call that panel? The
citizens.
Yeah, so we might look at, how we can improve that process as well.
And I'll mention that with Triumph because under this statute, we are going to have to change because we have to submit projects, the county does, from school boards and cities and things of that nature. And I'll talk about that with this. So we'll probably change that structure. But we have learned a lot. We overcomplicated some things. And, and again, this is not blaming Treasury. They were just here. You were here for the 2-day retreat. The scenario was that what the commissioner said was correct. They're compliance, they're not grant administration. And so when Congress put them in the grant administration business, that fouled them completely up. Plus they didn't give them a lot of money to do it. They just said you're over it. Their job is to make sure that it meets the federal requirements under the Restore Act, not tell us yes or no, but it's in a law. I mean, they told me when I was in D.C., we got people being prosecuted in Katrina, so they're scared to death they're going to make a mistake. So Commissioner Commander's right, it will change about every other day. It seems to change.
I guess what I'm trying to get at, Billy, is in follow-up to the question that this gentleman asked, is we've got pot 1, phase 1, 5.7 million. That essentially is not available for him to make any proposals on that money. That's done. That's out of here. We've got another $31 million, 33, whatever the number is, coming down the pipe. That's going to be spread out over 14 years, 15 years. But you're looking at creative financing to make that money available up front.
Absolutely.
I mean, how is he going to
let's say he wanted to do, let's go back to the example.
Yeah,
let's say somebody comes in phase 2 and says, I want to do $1 million worth of more reefs in Walton County. They would go through that process, be vetted, etc. If we then turn around and say, well, look, we've tied that to our new estuary program, the $2 million that I mentioned earlier, I can bridge those two together. We're going to have actually more monitoring, more quality, not just fishing and things like that. I want to work with that applicant to be able to do that.
But is he going to have a period of, say, a year, or anybody who wants to submit a proposal for the remaining $33 million, are they going to have a year to submit those proposals? Can you do it anytime in the next 15 years?
Well, that's what the commission said. We're not going to change the format, but no, we don't want people waiting. I mean, we want that money on the ground. And so we want to expedite it as best we can and walk through whatever treasurer makes us do. But no, we want to open up that now. We can get reefs or, bingos, whatever they allow us to do, we want to roll.
Well, how long has this 17 projects been in
A year and a half.
Did any of those projects receive state appropriated funds outside of BP?
And that's part of what we're trying to do better this time, is connect those dots and show. In other words, if we do 657 tanks over here, we do 331, we want to show those results. So we've learned. All right, let me go into state law so I can turn it over to the commissioner. Y'all can, she can hear everything. When I said when you talk Triumph or Gulf Coast Corridor, right, that's state law, okay? And where this started was in 2013. Senator Gates was the president of the Senate. They passed what was called the Gulf Coast Corridor Act. At that time, nobody knew what this, and let me back up. All of this is based on independent lawsuits from the 5 attorney generals from Texas over to Florida. So they sued BP as well as this was all going on federally. Pam Bondi did very well. She got $2 billion for the state of Florida. When they adjudicated this and put it into the actual settlement, so when you saw $18.9 billion, what they did, and BP had smart lawyers too, they wrapped all of this settlement into it. So the counties actually got less than what we had been anticipating, because basically $5.7 billion came right off the top. Does that make sense? Florida got $2 billion, Alabama got like $1 billion, so they took 5.7 of that 18.9 billion into a different pot of money. So it went through the AGs. Florida was the only state that had some kind of, what are you going to do with this money? That sat dormant, even though when you hear the $300 million, it was actually $400 million that came to the state of Florida in this past July. That was the first payment that BP made over the 15-year spread of the $2 billion that was to come in. As most of you know, if you're in politics and watch what happens in session, Speaker Corcoran was very against economic incentives. They changed a lot, and I'm going to get to that structure in a moment. But that $400 million was being held up with our delegation, both House and Senate, and a lot of moving parts. That money stayed. And again, remember, we were to get 75% of whatever came from Pam Bounty's lawsuit. And so $2 billion, the 8 counties get $1.5 billion. There is no treasury, no economic oversight. This is state law now that I'm talking about. They created a 5-member board that would oversee that. Those 5 members are former Speaker Alan Bentz, Bob Benezzi, Stephen Riggs, Pam Dana, and Stan Conley. That's who was appointed by the governor and the cabinet at that time. Now I'm going to tell you how the law changed in this past session. House Bill 7077 was the one that was enrolled and engrossed and sent to the governor. As the commissioner signed it, the governor signed it on June the 2nd, so it is now law. The major changes, and for the folks that don't have them, we've got a few more copies and we'll get it, but I've also given you a copy of the actual statute so you can read the statute. It's not bad. It's about 20 pages long. And again, it was based on the Gulf Coast Corridor Act, so you're going to see a lot of referencing back to some different statutes, and that's it. So, but this is the new codification of that.
I have a statute, if anybody wants it, I have several.
And so basically, let's start with, I'm going to go through all that, I'll try to be quick. Basically, the structure of that board now has changed to where there will be 7 individuals who oversee this $1.5 billion. over the next, 15 years. So Senator Munford, who represents all the areas where I'm from, felt like the eastern side didn't have representation, so they wanted to make sure that Franklin Wacella had somebody. But the way the statute worked out, it said the 4 least populated counties. So we obviously saw an opportunity because we are one of the 4 least populated counties. So we think there will be an appointment from Walton County, and then there will be a representative from the eastern side. That is completely at the discretion or pleasure, the way it's in statute, from the Senate President and the Speaker of the House. So I would say in the next 2 to 3 weeks probably, you will see appointments coming, and so there will be 7 people on that board. They had an organizational meeting right after the governor signed it and said we're not going to take any activities on this with policy and all that until we get the full board seated. They also gave them, and so when you hear Triumph is a statutorily created company so the state set it up. They put these people in charge of it. They gave them $1 million to basically hire lawyers and staff to start doing it. That's where we will ultimately submit our projects for approval, and it goes through. These are the allowable uses, and I do want to run through these real quick because they're a little bit different. Like in the federal act, education was not part of the bill. In the state law, it is part of the bill, so I want to show you those changes. We can use those monies for ad valorem tax reduction. We can use them for local match, as I said earlier. If we, let's say that DEP has a revolving fund and they'll give 67% to a county or a city for an issue, but they don't have the funding, we could use that money for it. Obviously, public infrastructure, traditional projects that you think of. Commander talked, keep saying I'll get with it in a minute. But the scenario is making sure that broadband, what is infrastructure? Okay, we got to have broadband, okay? We got to have stormwater. I mean, you're thinking about these things. It is sewer and water. It is transportation. It's everything that you normally think about that could happen. This was the biggest change that Speaker Corcoran pushed, that it would not be given to like a Boeing. In other words, Walton County can't say, here's $10 million, Boeing, come in and we'll build you a hangar. It can still get there, but it can't be through straight up to a particular business. This is where we're working. I'll give you an example on emergency management. I'm working with our local emergency management. We're talking about a regional staging area. So we're taking every one of these allowable uses from the county level, and we're having a strategic plan sort of oriented to what we think we could tell and put those projects in. We think we can look at a regional staging area with the Salvation Army, with our debris removal folks, etc. Tie in anything from IT, cybersecurity, and different issues. So each one of these will have unique little caveats that we'll start carving. This is the part, and I'm glad again at our school here, I had a lot of conversations with our new superintendent, Charlie. I went out and looked, I kept saying, for example, I felt bad the other day. I went out there and looked, and I was like, wait, Walton County needs this, Walton County needs that. I went out and saw his facility, and I went, I stand corrected, y'all got that, we just need to tell people about it. So integrating our collaborative partners, like our VOTEC schools, we've got Eastern Shipbuilding coming over there. What can we do with him to create the workforce and the welding and bring that together, and how do we catch the attention? So if you look at K through 20 institutions, the colleges, the state colleges, the research universities, they can come in. If we don't do this right, we'll have people that normally don't compete against each other competing against. So go back to your point, Reynolds. This is going to be competitive. If it's not done collaboratively. And when it's done that way, we get parochial and fragmented and we all lose. We want to go into that board and say, this is what Walton County wants. We've got our school board, we've got our college, we've got our hospital. So we're not all beating each other up. And that's why this is so important to do. We can provide transferable, sustainable workforce skills. You think about Career Source. Career Source is sitting in Charlie's VOTEC program. In other words, again, I can't go back to Boeing, but if the county commissioners say we want IT or we want to develop whatever they want to cluster as far as business-wise, we can work with folks like Charlie to build programs to make that effective for employers and tie that in. I just can't give it to an individual employer. The other thing that I think was really good, and I appreciate TDC letting us use their building, this is a great opportunity under tourism. You know, you get into the heads and beds and marketing and all that stuff and where everybody goes. This is the opportunity. If you look at the tail end of that sentence, when it says promote workforce and infrastructure, we have the opportunity to go outside of normal statute that TDC directs with what you can do with the money. And we can create, for example, Jay, the TDC director, has been talking to me about hotel and restaurant management programs where we could actually have the workforce development, we could tie into the universities, we can actually do things of infrastructure. And again, that could be programs, that could be people, that could be a more defined paddleboard trails and, you know, green eco tours and things. That gives us a lot more latitude when you talk about tourism and fresh Florida type products. We're talking about farm to table, what we can do with our north end, creating connectivity to our south end. So do know what you can do with this money, and if you're an individual, if you're a banker, if you're a hospital guy, and this is what we'll get to in a minute, you have to tell the commissioners, and again, there's lots of decision makers, so they're just going to be your advocates in some cases. What is it that you're trying to do, and how do we link all these things together so at the end of the day, we walk in and go, here's our plan as we come in. Yes, sir.
Is there a proportionate allocation by county of this money? You said it's $400 million in July 2016. Is that allocated proportionately to the counties, 23 counties, whatever number of counties?
Great question. In this bill, number one, we're only dealing with 8 counties. We're dealing from McCullough to Escambia. And exactly what you said, some of my former brethren wanted to make sure that nobody took their biscuit. So what, all through session, I was up there about every day, they started advocating that everybody ought to start with some kind of dog bone, so that everybody had some skin in the game. That was heard. Senator Gaynor did a phenomenal job, Senator Broxson, Senator Mumford, and the House members. So they came up with a 5% equal spread among the counties. So and move back up, $400 million was available. The 15 counties below were supposed to get $100 million of that. They got clipped. They got zero in the legislative session. The $300 million made it. So 5% or $140 million or $15 million to each county made it through. So yes, there is a funding formula that the first payment of this $300 million, each county will get 5%, $15 million. So collectively, that's $140 million over the 8 counties. There's still $160 million that's available on top of that just about anybody can swing in. Okay, so you look at these allowable uses. You don't have to be a government. You can be an NGO. That's the kind of stuff we were talking about with you. You do need partners, so you're not just standing out there with, it may be a good idea, but never get funded. So that's what we want to do. That's the funding formula. 5% first year, and the second year and through the remainder of these funds is 4%. And that goes back to the commissioner's comments about we have to set up some kind of board or process because we're supposed to solicit projects from the cities and from the school boards to submit to Triumph with the 4%.
So the $100 million was supposed to go to the counties that got zero and went to the state
general fund. So the southern part never does, and listen, I got some great, they all have great buddies down there. That's the first time I've ever seen the Northwest Florida keep the money and the South lose the money. You know, $100 million, and you have to think in actuality, you know, that, I mean, we're getting $1.5 billion. They lost $500 million over time. They lost $100 million this time, but it's gone. I mean, it didn't make it through.
And Billy, that goes to the fact that we have people like you in Tallahassee working for us every day in the other 8 counties. I think the other 15 just assumed, and you know what happens when you assume that they were going to get it, so they didn't work for it. So.
I mean, I appreciate the compliment.
And I can't wait till next week when I jumped on, you know, it was like.
I was stunned because they got a lot more juice than we did. I called Hillsborough County. Everybody's down there, where are you? Well, we didn't know it was gone. So I don't know. But good news is it's codified. So as you, and when you read the statute and get a copy of it, there are things in there that have to be put into the application process. There is no application as of yet. They will be opening up a website. They're required in statute to put a lot of things on this. it will be myfloridatriumph.com. So if you went there today, it would say coming soon. But everything they do, and you're talking about held under scrutiny, they did them worse than elected officials. They've got conflicts for 6 years. They have to disclose all their finances. I mean, there are layers and layers and layers of oversight. They have to report to the governor and the Senate president everything a year. The inspector general is going to look at it. So for the folks that are skeptical of government, you can look at it and go, the decision makers here are under a lot of scrutiny as they come through. 7. All right, let me pause there for a second. I told you about the structure. I told you about the uses. I told you how it's going to flow. Next year, when I say 4%, you can look over the next 15 years, it'll be about $100 million that's coming to the 8 counties that's non-taxpayer, none of this is taxpayer money, but non-taxpayer money that we want to do good things with. And that's why, again, the commissioners wanted to reach out to you today and hear these things. So with that, I'll pause for a second and answer any questions.
Well, I got one quick one. That's a lot of money to be rolled out over that period of time. They put that in interest period.
They do.
They do? What happens to the
That will stay, part of that actually goes back to the county, 8 counties, and part of it will be part of the organizational structure. That's a great question. Because like in the billions on the federal side, 5%, where that 4 or 5 really get their funding from, is from the interest of that. You'll see, former speaker who's the chairman of it, they will have bankers, they will have lawyers, and they're going to do it. They will run that interest. And it is that they didn't want it to create more interest to create an empire. They wanted it to go to projects, and they wanted to go back to the county. So you'll see that flow. That's a great question. House Bill 7079 is related, and this is a very big deal. Senator Broxson got this passed, and I'm telling you, if you don't play politics, just shake these guys' hands because they were smart. He passed, or got it passed with them, that this would be set up in a trust fund. The negative part about a trust fund is that they can sweep it. At any point in time, the state can come in and say, well, we had a major hurricane in Miami-Dade, and they could take this money. So it's not guaranteed, but they did make it harder to get to. What this bill does, and it's related, companion with House Bill 7077, is that it put it in the trust fund, so it automatically transfers to the Triumph Corporation within 30 days of the money being available and paid. So the beautiful part is we don't have to go back to the legislature every year for appropriations. That would be the hard part. So every year we have to go up there and deal with everybody. And again, they can still sweep it. I don't want to give it Pollyanna, but they have to take the whole thing. But you can't beat us to death year to year and say, no, we're going to move the money over here, move it over here. Okay, as we go. So I just wanted to let you know about that. That's brilliant legislation. And that's it. So I'll turn it over to back Ms. Cecilia if y'all got any questions. Yes, sir.
Is there a plan from the commission to kind of come up with a simplified roadmap for anybody in this county who has ideas, wants to get them to you guys, and you guys have some, long-term plan for, we're going for this now, we're going for this now, we're looking at this geographic area of Walton County. We're such a big county, and we're so diverse, but to affect some of these areas that really, truly need it, you have to look north. There's people all over that are needing that. There's definitely a lot more up north, and you don't want to just siphon all the money to those easy places that are already getting money back. So I guess that's.
I think it's twofold, Reynolds. I think the first part is I'm going to go to the commission with the folks that I need from a budgetary standpoint. This is where, again, we may need your help. I mean, from tax watch to individual citizen, what are you spending money on? I cannot do this. We don't have the intellectual capital. We got engineers and different things. I mean, they got other steps that they're doing. So we may need lawyers, we may need grant writers, we may need planners that can integrate. So the first part that they asked me to do is submit what team do you need, to be effective in that. So I'd say, if we're starting budget hearings now, I'm going to go to them and say, this is what I need. So that'll help part of it. The other part of it is like with our public information side and our engineering and our public works, we need that website, not just the applications, et cetera. But to go to your point, like bubbling up an idea. If somebody puts in there, hey, have y'all talked about, you know, whatever it is, a mousetrap over here, we need to be able to hear that and go, that's a good idea. The other reason that we're reaching out to you and the positions that you hold in the community is we want you to talk to everybody else and say, look, we're going to have, the chairman wants to have this meeting at least once a month. We even talked about doing it twice a month so we can stay ahead of everybody. But we want the business community talking to, you tell two friends, they tell two friends, they tell two friends. Because with y'all, this isn't as much about political art as it is technical capabilities. All of you play in different worlds and we need to harness that. So the answer to your question is we're building that mousetrap, but we don't have it today.
I think key too is for small businesses to fill out their part of this too, not just, like you said, the Boeings and all, you know, I mean, we aren't getting Boeing, but I'm just saying some big, you know, 500 job company coming in is great. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say discourage that. I'll encourage the heck out of it the right place in this county. But, it, you know, small business is what drives everything, you know, in this county. So,
well, I think like with this money, with, you know, with Small Business Association, I think with the chamber, that to me is my first step, because they've been doing it. Like I went to your meeting a couple weeks ago, and there was a hoopoo of people there. They need to be aware of it and give us their ideas. Same thing with your members, and what does it mean to me? You start talking about all these big numbers and 97 pots, what I have to be careful of is I'll lose somebody in the first 37 seconds, because that's a lot of mustard for the hot dog. But if we could break it down, and your member knows that I can take an idea to this step, and get it moving to the right, then with this team that the commissioners allows us to hire, basically, and they may be outside guns, but the scenarios, then you have a process that you can go through. So we'll get there. Now, we talked earlier about the timing of this issue. This is critical. It's still my hard to get a hold of me nowadays. It is, because I'm telling you, I've got everybody calling me from, can they build a barn? Can they do, I mean, it's just crazy spinning going on. So it'll help me with the team side of it, but we're not really competing, but in actuality we are with our fellow counties on this pot, because they're all going to come in. You know, if you look at Bay County, we have to make sure that we're partnering with them, but like Eastern Shipbuilding with the aerospace industry that they just bought in, or Escambia size, they're going to use all of their political strength to outmaneuver the other county. And we're going to try to be partners as best we can, but there are times when we're going to have to compete and put our best forward.
We got to be thinking about Walton County.
But we do need to think about Walton, but we also need to think about regional partners. How can we, you know, how can we partner, like for instance, the Choctaw Bay, we can partner with Oklahoma County, we can, you know, and there are going to be projects we need just for Walton County, but there are going to be projects that we can regionally look at
Absolutely.
as well.
Is this on the county website?
No, not yet, but it will be.
Okay, that's good. And then how will we know when that application is ready, or the timelines and the process, if we want our small businesses to be involved, how will we know when that happens?
Well, we'll try to formalize and try to be as best we can at the depository of information. But I think like with you, if you follow that, myfloridatriumph.com, they have to put lots of, because they're doing the same thing, county cities. So if you follow that website, they'll have meetings, they're posted meetings, they're having organizational meetings, but what we need to do is simply like with our public information officer, we can start sending that out and posting on the county website. So there's a lot of housekeeping that we can do, and the commissioners are directing us to do it, like with our PIO and stuff. So we'll do as much as we can, but we're having to track them too. I don't know what they're doing until I see it.
And we don't know when they will have that website.
No.
And as far as the process, it'll be formulated at the BCC meeting. You know, we will come up with a plan at the meeting that will be, you know, in the media, and whoever's there that day, you know, will be able to do that. And having public input on the process of ways we can improve that as well.
One of the things that I would like to suggest, and I don't know if it's something that funding can be allocated for it without it being an official team member, but it also correlates a little bit into the proposed tax and sales tax conversation and needing an organization to really be the voice of the project. I actually had a meeting with the Bay County Chamber CEO who helped spearhead their project over there, where they're getting significant amounts of income right now for projects, but I think that we need to really take the One Walton concept and turn it into a marketing and a branding strategy. Paul and I talked about this a little bit too, but we need to have a repository of information where people know that that's the place to go. We need to have the Facebook and the social media campaigns to support it. That is the One Walton campaign. We need to be soliciting our business members through the SBA, through the chamber and other organizations to provide testimonials that can be used for not only economic development purposes for us to try to attract new business to the area, but to also use it to have a page where we can be the voice, so people don't have to go to the mytown.whatever.org and have this convoluted mess of information that applies to 8 counties, and people get confused and they see dollar signs that don't necessarily apply just to Walton County. Like, we need to have a Walton County specific, website, social media, everything. I know the county doesn't have a Facebook page that's live right now, which Louis and I talked about that as well, but even, that would be a start. So many people that use social media now for gaining information, and it being an actual official source versus, some of the group pages that are set up for Walton County that, a lot of the links do link from the county site, but a lot of the stuff is just individual citizens posting. So, the chamber has been approached about being an organization for the half-cent sales tax purpose. I've got a ton of ideas on the One Walton campaign as a whole, and we can talk about it offline later, but I want to throw that suggestion out there. If there's a way that funding can be allocated to support, domain fees and monthly hosting fees and those kind of things. We've already talked about it from a government affairs standpoint, and have determined that we should allocate staff resources as well from the chamber to help support some of those efforts.
Well, you make it to me, and again, the board will make the ultimate decision because we have funding. But I think everybody, I know Jay's willing to, from TDC to help. We've been talking with the sheriff. We need to build that. So, because again, number one, if we don't do this, I hate to say shame on us, but it is shame on us. It's right here. Where I'm from, you pick it up scouts, it's like, dude, I don't see it. Dude, they're right there. I guess because I saw them when I was a kid, it's like, well, they're not here. I bet you they are. It's right here. So we need each other's help in the process. I definitely need your help in the process. And we will get to that structure. And I think you're right. If you try to go on and you see all this, you can't break it down to what does that mean to me. And I don't mean in a parochial way and just self-serving. We do want to make people make money and go and do it all. That's not what I'm saying. But how do we move it in a process? So more meetings like this. Our commissioners are supportive. Where you can touch the city guys, the school board members, the colleges. But we'll plan a meeting with commissioners' approval. And I do think we need to try to have, and again, get too big, you get all wobbly, you can't figure out what you're doing. But if we could break it down, if your interest is banking and finance, if your interest is tourism, if your interest is infrastructure, etc. One other thing I forgot to mention, and I'll put this on the website too, the college, or the state college, not state college, UWF, there we go. They got 3 initials, I can't remember. UWF got a commerce grant and put together Northwest Florida Forward. It's basically an analysis of all, and they broke it into 5 pillars. I think we should partner with some of those pillars that what they're doing makes sense. So I'll do as best I can pulling the information together and then meeting with y'all. The thing I would need, and again, Commissioner's been great, but y'all having some indulgence, because at this point, I don't have an assistant. I got somebody putting scheduling down, Thank God for my wife, I wouldn't know where I'm going. If I ever get when she calls, hey, but we got to work together. So be patient with the phone calls and we'll get there. But keep the juice. Demand of the commissioners, hey, we want to have another meeting. I need you to be there because we're going to get scattered. So if y'all keep it going, then I think we can respond.
I'm sorry, I have a good thing maybe about the chamber being involved in the website is, especially Facebook, there's something in this state called the Sunshine Law, and it hampers us a lot, big time. because, and that's, one of the things, I've been talking with our PIO for years about doing a Facebook page. But if she posts on it and then we could be, in violation of the sunshine law. So I've asked maybe a little more pressure from somebody else besides me with Lewis. But we have to be careful. But if some other, entity posted, maybe it would be entirely different.
And we have to keep up every comment, now we can have a Facebook that just gives information, but if we allow for comments, we have to keep all those comments.
Right.
So it creates.
And then they're subject to somebody making a records request and wanting everyone.
So we've heard about marketing, we've heard the one Walton concept, testimonials, Facebook, staff resources, which groups, chambers offer. What are some other ideas we have? Let's just brainstorm some.
What's the process that you're going to, what have you learned through the 17 projects that you've already received proposals on? And have you learned about a streamlined way to accept proposals?
We have some good projects, but I'm chairman of the Economic Development Board, and I'm thinking about, helping our economy, creating new jobs, and strengthening our infrastructure. The REAP projects were exported to me, but I want a little bit different direction on these. I want to see, first of all, we can have every job in the world apply, but we've got to have the water sewer on every one.
Right.
We can have every person in the world apply, we've got to have housing for them to live in. So these are, what are our ground, what on ground level, ground zero, what do we have to have to, get from A to Z? We've got to have B, C, D. So that's why our #1 project was the water sewer on 331. And we have a chance to get it now.
And not only pot one, Commissioner, but every other pot we get our hands on. Because that's 31 million roughly, if we're only getting 5 million a year here and 2 million a year there. It's going to take a while.
What else did you see as that we can improve on just the process?
I think we've learned, and Treasury has learned, some of you were here during that meeting. We had Treasury here about a month ago, 2 days actually in this room, to talk about that. And I do think the Trump administration has moved them a little bit. When we were in Washington, they said, for example, if you want to put all of your 31 million into the wastewater, we think that's good. I fell out of my chair. Because they have dissected everything that we've done in different ways. So it's a good question about what you've learned. I think #1, we want to make it a lot more singular. We're going to get infrastructure, environmental, whatever, and we come in and we do it much faster. We know how to rank them faster. We know how to advertise it quicker. We know how to move it through the process. And I think even though you have to have public involvement and that kind of stuff, you can also beat something to death, in the process. So, we know we've got some overarching goals. We do know we want to do the estuary, or we do know we want to do these septic tanks. So we can fast track that. I think when you go back to your comments earlier, if you don't get into the south end planning and zoning, et cetera, but we need to have meetings with our planning folks so that we could say from the Bay North, for example, on that 331 corridor, if you have a business within, say, we've already got a TIF there, but if we've got, let's say, a half mile or a mile, whatever you want to designate, you go up there, we can get you permitted, in 90 days. So we're not holding you up. So there's as much about policy with this that I can help you, because that's money for somebody that's trying to develop frustrations. Freeport, for example, has a RAO designation, which is a rural area of economic opportunity. That is a huge designation that if we could extend that up 331, it gives the governor, and in other words, you came to a business, you want to do something on 331. Not only us, but the state has to give you everything within 90 days. It doesn't mean that they're going to approve it, but it has to be done within 90 days. So you don't get drug out with DEP or someone else. But that way we don't collide with South End issues, but we have designated targeted areas so that if I go buy 100 acres over here, I can move, and so those kind of things we've learned that we need to do.
Well, let me float a balloon for you. We've been talking about at the EDC, Lewis County and the tours, some of the stuff over there from Air Force Base. And that is, there's still a movement to try to rat proof Edmond and some of the missions here in Walton County as part of that. And the greenways people are trying to look at preserving and expanding to help with the new technology that Eglin has for weapons and for the airships. They don't have enough test rooms, and so they're trying to acquire more greenway areas where they can not only enhance what Florida's trying to do from an environmental standpoint, but also use that for flyways for the base. The other thing we need down here is we need ways to be able to develop land that we have trapped, these leftover parcels we have. And we need to be able to buy mitigation land. We need to be able to get wetland areas that are in these same basins that we have here. And if there were ways for us to take some of this money and buy land that would go into the state funds, that would be part of this greenway and the wildlife corridors, but would also expand Eglin's mission and help protect it and rat-proof it. But those lands could be designed and permitted in such a fashion that they could be made mitigation banks and then made available to the community here, so that when they needed to make a deal to help enhance a site in the south end of the county in such a fashion that they could truly make an environmentally sensitive development, but be able to have mitigation land on the north end of the county where the county's made it available. The county could make money on that. It also would enhance the mission. It would enhance the Florida mission to provide environmental corridors, and it would help. We've got a problem out here, and the fact that we still need services, we still need development here, but we've run out of finding sites. So that would be a great place to spend some money.
I can tell you too, part of what we'll put on the website for you is in 2012 and 2014, the legislature changed public-private partnering, P3s that are out there, unsolicited, that type of scenarios. You bring out the mitigation bank. We actually have the ability to do that as well. I think Westerville, I've had some conversations with Westerville that do this and working with it. That's a great tool. You know, it's controlled by DEP, but if we're part of it, where a developer knows that, you know, I can do this, I can buy X number of credits. The environmental community knows that we've worked with them. The whole thing has been put together, so we've master planned it instead of one-twosies kind of thing. You bring up another good point. So I think policy and permitting and integration to this is so good.
Well, the environmental community gets they get to pick the sites, they get to control how it's put together. It takes the friction out that you have between the Corps of Engineers and the DEP and the state institutions. They're always fighting, no, don't develop that. Well, here it flips it on its ear. And here they are now finding sites that they want to purchase, and they want to put into these preservation areas, and they're looking for people who want to help them fund that.
100% agree. That's the kind of discussions that the commissioners need to hear. What other questions, like, we got some...
Can I bring up something?
Yes, ma'am.
He and I were at the PDO meeting yesterday. I serve on the PDO board. Well, Crestview apparently is gridlocked 5 o'clock in the afternoon because of Eglin. And they were talking, and step in here if I say something wrong. I think I remember the discussion yesterday. So we actually have a project on the TPO plan to continue in 4-lane 331 up to the Alabama line. I mean, we've been working on this 30 years. You know, and I just pray it happens before I hit, 6 feet under. But anyway, Okaloosa County and Nathan Boyles, who we love, but anyway, he brought up how they need a project at Antioch. Anyway, they need their project worse than we need our project because they have so much gridlock. Well, I says to myself, if we can, and also they brought out if it gets too congested and well, then they will seriously look at taking some of the missions away from it. So, if we could figure out a way, and all these think tanks that we're doing here, to get some of those people to move in this direction.
Come down 20.
Yeah, then we could provide housing, and it would enhance business and everything else. So we need to be thinking, how can we pull those people, Madam Chairman? So You know, I didn't hear that till yesterday. Of course, I got my hackles up and he started talking about taking our project away.
Comfortably nestled.
Yeah, but, you know, it is, hey, how could we draw them and keep, because if we lose that one, we're in trouble.
Let me make a quick point too, Roger. I'd like to hear your comments. When I was elected, way back with Roger, that's where I saw government and a not-for-profit with the hospital, and then a private enterprise with St. Joe. He led the directives, how we could, you talk about the half-cent sales tax. Coming from a small community, we couldn't support a hospital infrastructure, but we knew, and at the time, the economy was blowing and going. We knew we couldn't sell $500,000 lots if people moved there if they worried about, you know, their wife or their child, etc. with healthcare. Now, we're blessed now having a hospital here, but we all came together and used the half-cent sales tax to commit to LIP funding to work with the hospital. The private sector with St. Joe donated lands and dollars, etc. And Gulf County got a state-of-the-art hospital, like a baby Sandesco, over there. But it took a private enterprise. It took commissioners willing to do half-cent sales tax. You know, it had folks to publicly informed of what we were going to do. And people don't think about healthcare as an infrastructure, but healthcare is a massive infrastructure. So, Roger, do you have some thoughts or ideas or anything that you would suggest we do?
Well, there's numerous healthcare objectives that we can have. Certainly, what the commissioner was talking about on being able to use the internet for healthcare is certainly something to open up access and improve the quality. Also, there's the need of, from the IT perspective, we have universal patient records so that we could take patient information across all healthcare providers, and we could track that. We could literally use the internet to really bring best practices of medicine to all the residents. And there's numerous things that we can do to think about healthcare other than through a hospital, but it takes different thinking. And it'd be nice for Walton County to think about the goal being the healthiest county. And from the healthiest county comes the regulations on what we do around drugs and alcohol, what we do on smoking, and the real need of child care, early child care. When we start looking at workforce and workforce development, the fact that there's the availability of child care is really a detriment to economic growth to this area, because you look at young moms trying to find daycare. We don't look at the importance of education and preparedness to the children at early age. You know, a child has 80% of his adult intellectual capacity developed by the time they're 4 years old. And we've got to get these children. Wouldn't it be nice to live in a county where 100% of our children were kindergarten ready, first grade ready? And today, the statistic is that only about 75% of our children are ready for school, and they will be failed. And we have to understand that healthcare is connected to high school graduation. The healthiest state in the United States is Vermont. Vermont also has the highest graduation rate, and so we need to think of healthcare not with hospitalization, but how we live our lives and how we take that education and how we do that. And I think we could change this community more by thinking of healthcare and integrating that than one thing. Of course, I'm a little partial.
Just a little.
Celeste. Thank you, Roger. Those were good comments. I'm, coming from my pre-K background especially, so I see the real need of, and I remember when I, had my child, I could not find daycare, and it's so frustrating. And I know South Walton is really dealing. It's a crisis down here. The daycare situation. It's not. Well, I don't know if it's as bad as North Walton I thought it did, but I know there's a crisis down here. It's all over. So we need to make that as one of our real key priorities. Celeste.
Yeah, I just want to see that there is some projects that move forward for enhancing and increasing the greenway here in the south end too, because I really believe, because we have our parks and forests, that is enhanced quality and the quantity to some extent of the tourists we're getting here. And I think we need to look at, the county's been looking at buying more land for recreation, but we also need to look at purchasing land for protecting all these resources, like the outfalls. But we want to make sure that a project like one that was in review right now doesn't do more harm to the environment by saving one piece but then destroying another. So we have to look at it, you know, in that respect. And speaking of healthcare, one of the best things to do, I mean, exercise. I mean, I can't go into a gym and walk on a treadmill. It's like, you know, things torture me now. But I mean, but if you get out, and it's so beautiful here, whether it's in the forest or along the bike trail, I think it's good. I've read.
We need bike trails and take them off of 98 and 38 where people get ran over.
Right. Well, we need, right, and there are a lot of trails, but they need some enhancement, that sort of thing. But we need to improve, and I know there's some plans to improve the west end of the bike path down there along 38, but there needs to be so much more, particularly on the east end. Got to take back the right-of-ways, and if it means you've got to pay somebody, you know, to relocate something, whatever, but we need those right-of-ways along 38, every inch of them, and then we need really good bike paths. I don't know, when we're talking about small businesses, has anybody noticed in the last 3 or 4 years how many bicycle businesses have opened up? And it's like we've got these people coming here and then we're just throwing them out on these horrible bike paths.
So Leslie, look at, if you stand out here and watch the traffic coming in on the weekends and you look at the number of bikes that you're putting on top of the car.
Exactly. And then, you know, when, you know, like right today, you don't want to get in the ocean, but you know what, you could be riding the bike path, it's not raining, and people don't feel like, I came here, I'm spending all this money and I'm sitting in the condo, you know, or, you know, I guess Silver Sands loves it, but, you know, we still need to offer, we're saying come here and ride your bikes, but then if you get out there on that path, it's horrendous. Absolutely, it's dangerous and it's horrendous, but we need to also get that, fix that, and that's going to help, that will help your traffic problem too, but we need to, again, with our coastal dune lakes, we need to, however we can, protect those headwaters, not just the outfall, but we need, both ends need some sort of protection, you know, and so that's where, however that money could be funneled for those things, I'd like to see that.
You know, may I kind of dovetail on what she just shared, and I speak in terms of North Walton County and the Funiac Springs, which is you know, my town where I live and love, and have been very blessed to raise my family. And and I appreciate Commander inviting me, and Billy shared with me, he wanted ideas, big ideas, maybe not quite as specific as a project today, but he asked me if I could come and share and just bring some concepts that we could then dovetail and find the expertise to make this happen as a group, as a team. And I thought maybe it'd be interesting just to share with you what the Funiac Springs is. In fact, maybe I didn't know this at one point, didn't realize that the Funiac Springs was the first resort community, planned community in the state of Florida. And that in the early 1800s, the Funiac Springs was developed as the southern location for the Chicago Festival, which in the late 1800s was an adult community educational program to build spiritual nurture and growth through art, music, science, religion, and body. It was a gated community, It's phenomenal, you guys. Designed and developed as a campus. One gate in, one gate out. in its height from 1885 to 1927, for 8 weeks out of the year, from February 1st to the end of March, the Funiac Springs had 4,000 people a day came there. It was one of the hottest tourist, economic, educational, spiritual locations in the United States. Listen to this. National speakers like Robert Todd Lincoln spoke there. Clara Barton, the founder of the Red Cross. William Jennings Bryant. Julia Howe wrote the Battle Hymn of the Republic. Governor William McKinley. The Governor, Katz, built his house on the outside of the gate to Lake Funiac. Why? Because it was the hottest community, one of the hottest in the United States. That kind of educational heart and compassion for the arts, music, science, spiritual nurture and growth still lives in the Funiac Springs. It's just sleeping. We've been overshadowed by this huge monster called the beach. God bless it, and we are so thankful for it. But there's much more to our county, and we are believing for you to help us dovetail and bring back that educational heart through our VOTEC Center, through our universities.
Bruce, what slowed it down? Why did it change so?
Well, I think the Depression had a lot to do with it. Just the Depression hit, and hammered. Well, listen to this. Listen to this. At the height of the Chautauqua movement, it was so attractive. We had Palmer College established outside the gate. They built a college. Florida State Normal School, Teachers College, boom, right there outside the gate. McCormick University, Thomas Industrial School, the Funiac Business College. Guys, come on. The Chautauqua Hall of Brotherhood was built, and the pillars are named after presidents. There was an auditorium on the back of it, 2,400-seat auditorium. The Funiac was so hot, they tore it down and built a 4,200-seat auditorium for education. I think Billy said that's a big deal in this triumph money is education. We've got a national landmark that we're in the process, we've applied for. It could be a national historical site that is just sitting there waiting for students, waiting to take some of this load off. Like you were saying, when it rains, they could drive up there. They can have a conference in maybe a new auditorium on the back of the Chautauqua Hall of Brotherhood, as an example, where the technical school could teach. We could bring in the Biophilia Center to run conferences. Just an idea. But the Funiac Springs is a sleeping historical diamond that we cannot forget. And I'm thankful that I'm here to speak for that history that's gorgeous and just waiting to be awakened.
I think being a new person, and number one, I appreciate it because I live in Funiac Springs now, so I like to remind me of Port St. Joe. So I think I'm one that got caught in that web, which is a good thing. But the scenario I would tell you is that if you look at national politics, state politics, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, the key to this success and everything we talked about goes to what you just said. It's about bringing the North and South together in some connected way. You're not going to be a South Walton, but if you have unique and all the folks, and not everybody, but the folks that want their community to move, it's like one kid that goes one way and one kid goes the other way. Completely different, but you love them both. The scenarios, there's so much intellectual capital down here, not just financial, truly business-directed, business people, etc., that we need to connect to our kids. We need everything we can think about, from mentoring to coaching to financing, access to capital, etc. and connect it. That includes our environment, our community. So if everybody came with the same kind of passion and vision that you're talking about right now, and says, look, let's try to do it different. This is our community. That's the keys.
Yeah.
That's the keys.
I think I would address this to the city and Sarah, talking about the bike trails. Is there any chance we could ever do bike trails on 331 going through Freeport and up to Virginia? I think that would be a tremendous.
You have to ask DOT that.
Well, if you look Tallahassee, you know what it is? It's, I think it's called Capital City Circle. I live in Tallahassee, I can't remember. Get the guy with the cigar, or Chevy on that bicycle, I can't remember. But the scenario, they looped it all the way down to Wacoa County, and they took it to TCC like we would do with the Biophilia plant, and have people that could connect it. And I forgot the economic value, but the environmental connectivity of the bike trail, they had a funding formula that it was for every 20 miles, and then it was something that had to happen international. I can't remember what the numbers were. Massive opportunity, to have not just added amenities, but true economic value. And that's the kind of bubbling up of ideas. The other part that I think is important that you bring out, we've got to get people doing this. It can't be in a commissioner meeting because there's too much protocol, there's too much sunshine, and these guys know that. It's no slander of commissioners. You can't have this kind of open dialogue. So you got to be able to say, you may be environmental and I may be business, but instead of killing each other, I used to say in Gulf County, one thing we agreed at that we all love the back. We want to protect the scalps. I may be getting mullet and, you want to do this, but we have a common denominator. That's what this group could be, is the genesis to be able to do that. So I hope y'all keep coming. I know we're running out of time. I do want to hear everybody. Yes, sir.
Of course, speaking on behalf of education, Charlie and I hear a lot of things from employers constantly. We're in a lot of meetings with employers, and it's workforce development. Why don't you hand it up? So we've been working on a couple, well, actually 3 projects on behalf of the college, because we're looking at funding for those. One of the areas that we're looking at is skill trades. Skill trades is, at this point, I have architects literally telling me they won't build a brick building anymore because there's no one to lay brick. I mean, that's directly out of their mouth. So, as I said, Charlie and I are hearing these things. So one of the projects that we're focusing on at the college is actually, it's called in there a Sim City project. We do have, up in Defuniak Springs, we have a campus up there that's literally looking for an identity. Well, we're looking to give it an identity at this particular point. So we want to move that project, that particular project that's in there, that Sim City project, to the Defuniak Springs campus. We have 70 acres or 80 acres, something like that. That's adjoining to that campus. That adjoins to Charlie's campus. We're all there together so that we can get some kind of synergy and start developing those workforce programs out of that particular site. I literally have utility companies from St. Pete north up into southern Alabama, Mississippi, calling me going, what are you guys proposing? And oh my God, we're in, because we can't find anybody to work. And if our utility companies can't continue operating, Okaloosa Gas actually said, we don't know who's running this company in 5 years. We have no clue who's running this company in 5 years at this point, because we're all retiring and we have no one in the pipeline to replace us. That was from the executive vice president of Okaloosa Gas. So they're all saying exactly the same thing. So that project right there is what we're looking to develop. There's a couple of different projects in there. We're also looking at manufacturing in Crestview area, but specifically for the Defuniak area, we're looking at giving that identity and saying, that's going to be the skill trades. We're going to dovetail with Charlie. We've talked about this. We met a couple of weeks ago and talked about it. Neither one of us are looking to step on each other's toes. We're looking to expand what we're doing up there and work cooperatively up there. So that's something that we're throwing out for the consideration.
From the north end perspective, on a big meeting like this, because I work with those carpenters and those plumbers who are driving to the south end every day, and I heard something. Bill shared something with me the other night that there was a plan for a non-electronic kind of transfer program. Transportation program, for instance.
Autonomous vehicles.
Autonomous vehicles. Well, I'd never heard of it. And I started sharing just the fact that this is what some of our leadership are working on. They're just trying to think through this transportation system, because driving a labor, you might be a bricklayer, but just what it costs and to get back and forth to the job, it almost makes it not worth working the trade. So if we could take this, build this, this is the technical center of the Southeast with a transportation system that gets you to the workplace and back, and it's affordable, that's a home run. Because people could come to the Funiac from the Southeast to study for trades and jobs, just like people do in other parts of the United States. When a factory closes, they move to where the work is. We got the work here, but we need that transportation to be able to get back and forth. But to make a little long story longer, I didn't even know, and we didn't know, that kind of thinking's going on. And when I started sharing with people, do you know that our leadership is working on right now, like I call it electronic rail, because it's easier to trust no driver cars, like what? But just the fact that somebody was thinking about that and working on that is good news.
It's a secret,
Really?
number, but I think somebody told me that we've got 5 Tesla charging stations in the community.
That's right.
I've been told that's one of the busiest in the United States across I-10.
Extremely busy. And I've actually talked to people that go and charge, and the need for additional resources for them to go and do is huge.
Well, that brings up one other program that we're considering. I'm not sure how this can be dovetailed into this project, but we're working on this Main Street program. And the Main Street program is a wonderful designation that gives us some guidance and a master plan. And so it's worthy of discussion and consideration in this brainstorming, because that's what that's all about, developing those retail shops, maintaining that historical integrity and restoration of economic development in an old city like the Funiac. So
the other thing, and I say this, and I'm going to get off this because we've got to wind up, these kind of meetings, and I'm saying Sarah, for example, a couple times because that's how we relate, but that's actually how you have to touch these folks, not when they're literally sitting in the chair and doing what they have to do and everything goes through. It needs to be Cecilia and it needs to be Sarah, because you're right, people don't know. They sent me to Washington. I look like, here comes Country Bumpkin, to ask Federal Highway Administration to get designated as a public policy lab under the FHA, under rule. The only one in the state, I'm talking about this state, I'm talking about all states, where we have that with virtual cities and different things. Now, we had that 1.9 million through the legislature. The governor vetoed it, where if I had known Mr. Second Triangle Man before this meeting, I said, dude, you need to come over to Tallahassee with me and help me push the governor to do this. That's where we can help each other in the process. But it takes this kind
I was telling people about that we didn't get it, but it made it to town. We were this close, and they were like, wow, that's fabulous. That's good news. That's fighting out there.
We're going to close, but I want to close with this one project that really has got my attention, and what's one of my favorites. It's after the BP oil spill. I mean, you're riding around. I was commissioner down there, now I'm commissioner in the north end. And I was thinking, all this farmland, what can we do to diversify our economy and not depend on just strictly tourism? And then I heard of this great program that I'm going to let Billy tell you, that farm program. Just, kind of just...
Well, we started looking at Tallahassee Community College. Are y'all familiar with what they did with the McCullough Environmental Institute? Great dynamics. Bob Ballard did a great job. Actually got the state to give him submerged lands, oyster harvesting, culture, etc. These two commissioners went with me, and we actually did a site visit. Got on an oyster boat, saw where the students were doing it. They got $4.6 million from the legislature, got $2.5 million from Commerce to build this program with the college. It has a pure economic development driver. So these two said, do that in Walton County, do that in Walton County. So we reached out to the University of Florida and said, look, you're the land grant agent, you got IFAS, etc. We want to build an innovation center. We talked about it at Outset, where we have our estuary program, so we can do all of the best sciences and practices in the environmental piece. We want to take autonomous vehicles and have a virtual city and everything there. We want to have our farm-to-table program so we can connect logistically our north end farmers to our south end hoteliers and restaurants. And we want to do it all academically and science. And we want to integrate students all in. So then Emerald, we had discussions with those folks. We went over and saw Cafe Reconcile. This stuff that he's talking about that nobody knows. They sent me over to Louisiana to see how Emerald did it with Cafe Reconcile. He did it for at-risk youth. We want to do it for rural kids who don't have exposure to these things. He said he's willing to put a culinary program there, so we would have farm-to-table, culinary, environmental. I'll give you another example. I was telling the commission spent a while back. During the oil spill, we had a lady, a deputy secretary, call me and said, "Look, I've got $7.5 million." I told Charlie this the other day for environmental workforce integration. And I was thinking, what the hell is environmental workforce integration? I'm not sure, but if you give me 24 hours, I'll figure out how to spend $7.5 million. There is so much opportunity at the federal level and the state level that we never even asked for, that these guys directed us to go look at. And that program that we come in, if we center all of those things and kind of duplicate them, we need the colleges and we need all of that. We're talking about jobs, education. If you live in Paxton or Freeport or Defuniak, you could awaken that sleeping giant that you're talking about. Because no matter how you look at it, the North End is the workforce supplier of everything that happens down here. And we have the opportunity to move our middle class and everybody up. So let's get jiggy. Here, if you haven't signed, I know we got to go. If you haven't signed the sign-in list, we're not trying to report that you were here, but we want to make sure we start there communicating for the next meeting. We ask that you tell other people, other folks that you want to go and have the round table. Is there anything else, Commissioner, you want?
Lee wants to say something.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I would just say two things. One is that when we talk about infrastructure investment and economic development, and I know we all know this, but I think so many things have been said today that touched on it. We've got to look at what are people of the future looking for, and it's starting already. But there are definite trends. Things like the fact that quality of life in a place has become one of the biggest factors for where business is located. Absolutely huge. And we are rich in that in Walton County. From county line to county line, up north and south, and east and west. And so I think we always have to be thinking about that when we're talking about trails and paths and sidewalks. Walkability and bikeability are just huge. So everything that we're doing, and it does tie back, Celeste's right, it ties right back to what Roger was saying. A lot of progressive areas, their health departments and their planning departments work hand in hand, very, very closely together. They combine those departments in some places because that planning is so critical to creating an environment for overall health. So I think that should be always in the backs of our, or the fronts of our minds as we look at these things. And the other thing, I think you're exactly right that this is the way to do this. And I would say that instead of, my thought is, and I'm learning, things are evolving, but maybe out of the gate, instead of focusing on brainstorming about specific projects, it would be interesting to say, okay, what do we want Walton County to be in 20 years, in 30 years, in 50 years? And then we look back, then we go take a step back and say, okay, then what resources do we already have that could be enhanced, like the Biophilia Center in Alaqua, you know, the beautiful beaches here and the draw here and Defuniak, Main Street, all of those things, farmland. And then what do we not even have? We're just totally missing it. And so we've got some holes to fill in and look at projects around those things. And that's where I think, and coming together with a lot of people with a lot of different perspectives is key to making that happen. And it can get overwhelming when you think, oh my God, how do we ever look at all that even and start narrowing down the projects? But you can, and you can start filling in so that instead of like the first phase, not criticizing because there are great projects that came out of the Pot 1 first phase, but it's like everybody looking at their own thing, right? They got their own thing. And we tend to do that just in general as humans. But if we ever synthesize and really start working together and planning together and looking at the future and working backward from there, then that's when I think it's really effective and you come out with really holistic solutions that can take it to a whole other level.
Did you say you want to be our facilitator? Cecilia, I'm sorry, can I say one, and I agree with what you're saying, and as you know, since I've been in office,
I have held visioning sessions for 4 years. I just got through with one last month. Do you know the most people I had at any meeting was 4? I held them in Paxton, I held them in Uniac Springs, I held them in Freeport, and I held them in South Walton. Now, if you wanted to count my staff, we probably had 7. But that is my problem, is that we want ideas. I mean, don't we? I mean, we do. People don't show up. Now, people came here today because, you know, there's some stuff attached to what we're doing here.
Well, and Sarah, and it's no fault of yours, but I think that part of the issue for why you didn't have high participation in that is people don't know about it. People don't sign up to receive the alerts from the county emails. People don't, I mean, people don't just go to the website and see, oh, look, there's a visioning meeting. I mean, we need to find a way, and if it's, you know, Leah, I love the idea. Let's identify some survey questions and then find agencies who are willing to include a 1-question survey a week in their e-newsletter to their constituents through the SBA, through the chamber, through Howard Group's distributions through Greer Boulevard. If Sacred Heart has something, you know, find people and do a 1-week question. Let's find a 6 or 10-week campaign that we run. Everybody collects their information. We make sense of it, and then we try to build some blocks and determine what the best thing is for us to do.
And that's the only thing. Of course, I'm limited with county money. We put it on the radio. We put it in the newspapers. We put it on our website.
Nobody reads the newspaper and the radio. You try to reach that 25 to 55 now, just about, they forget it.
But here's the thing too, I would say, is that sometimes just an unexpected opportunity creates a framework for something to happen that you've been trying to get to happen, because I know you have for years, because we have, I mean, there are more than 4 people here for sure, and I think that what it is there is an opportunity that feels concrete. We may not know what it means quite yet, it's very complicated, but people know all of a sudden there's tons of money that's going to be available here. And so that almost creates that framework and that opportunity that is a magnet that brings people to it. And then all of a sudden, hey, you've achieved long-term visioning and participation because of that.
You know, the long-term vision idea is wonderful. I was on the first Economic Development Council for the Union. You know what I wanted? I never got it through, but you know what I wanted them to do? Simply design a poster so that when they came in my shop, I could go, this is where I think the Uniac's heading someday. Just really cool artist rendition of where we could be. All your idea of what the future of Walton County, one Walton County could look like, it could simply be a poster, a beautiful artist rendition of where we as a group of leadership see the county going. That would be enough to at least start that a unification, possibly, of vision 20 and 30 years from now. That we could then talk about that, which would have that electronic rail system that, yeah, they're working on that right now. Or look at this, yeah, we might have this Tesla Center experimental college in Owl's Head. But something you could show somebody that all of us are going, that would be cool. That'd be nice.
I want to thank Cecilia for doing this so much. I appreciate it. Getting this started. I want to thank Billy and he has put in a lot of work in this, but as our chairman, Cecilia is leading us forward here, and I appreciate it.
Well, and I will say too, your visioning that you kind of maybe aren't feeling real good about it, that was groundwork for this.
Yes.
So nothing was done that we can't glean from and grow on, so don't feel bad.
If I didn't know about Triumph, they ain't gonna no nobody ever come listen to me speak. It's about the money, and it's gonna draw everybody out of the corner. So that being said, Lee's exactly right. We can use that as our catalyst to be working together.
I want to put 2 cents worth in here to follow up on Sarah, because we've got to get more people involved. I assumed, I think I told you, we need to go early because there'll be standing room only. I thought people would flood this building. This isn't a big turnout to it.
Well, the weather is pretty big. The weather.
Well, for Walton County it is, but I've been in county commission meetings when I was one of 3 people in the audience.
We like that.
It'd be nice to
I am teasing. You know, I'm teasing.
have that.
Oh.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll let you know. If you're on that email, we'll set up another meeting. Certainly, you've got everybody's contacts with commissioners and phone numbers. Bear with us as we try to put it together. We'll stay hot on it. If I hear anything about Triumph or different things moving, I'll try to let you know. We'll try to set up another meeting in a couple of weeks. Hopefully by that time, we know who the appointees are with Triumph.
When you find out the meeting, send that out to your email.
And y'all go get your business people that your colleagues with, et cetera, and say, look, this thing's baby, but we've got the commissioner's ears, let's try to keep it rolling, and we'll have these type of formats. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank you all.